Two people, same city, same age, same salary, same savings. And 10 years from now, one of them will wake up to discover that their investments quietly earn more every year than they do at work. The other will still be waiting for the next raise, convinced they're almost there. Here's the strange part. They both think they made the smarter decision. They're both wrong. Because the moment your investments earn more than your salary isn't created by one brilliant investment. It's created by hundreds of tiny decisions that compound until one day the numbers completely change the rules of your life. The gap between these two people doesn't explode overnight. It grows silently, almost invisibly, until one day it's so large that it becomes impossible to ignore. And that's exactly why so many people miss it. So let's make this comparison as fair as possible. Meet Daniel and Ryan. They're both 30 years old. They both live in Dallas. They both earn $90,000 a year before taxes. They each have $40,000 already invested and no consumer debt. They both receive an average annual salary increase of 3%. Neither inherits money. Neither starts a business. Neither wins the lottery. Same starting line. Same opportunities. Just one difference. The decisions they make with every extra dollar. Daniel decides that his primary goal is increasing his lifestyle. Every raise becomes an excuse to upgrade something, a nicer apartment, a newer SUV with a $650 monthly payment over 6 years, more expensive vacations, better restaurants. None of it is reckless. In fact, it looks completely normal. His retirement account still receives enough to capture his employer's match, about 5% of his salary. After that, he spends the rest. Ryan does something that almost nobody compliments him for. Every raise gets split. Half improves his lifestyle, half increases his investing. Instead of keeping his retirement contribution at 5%, he raises it to 15%, then eventually 20%. He also invests an additional $500 every month into a low-cost total market index fund. It's boring. Nobody notices. Nobody congratulates him. His investment account is just a number on a screen. And that's the problem. One path creates stories. The other creates statements. One feels exciting. The other feels invisible. Feelings and math are two very different things. Let's run the numbers. Both begin with $40,000 invested. We'll assume their diversified portfolio earns an average annual return of 8%, close to the long-term historical return of a broadly diversified U.S. stock portfolio before inflation, although actual returns vary from year to year. Daniel contributes roughly $4,500 annually, increasing slowly as his salary grows. Ryan contributes roughly $18,000 annually between payroll deductions and his separate monthly investments, increasing contributions every time his salary increases. On paper, both are investing. Sounds great. Until you subtract everything else. Daniel's SUV costs $650 every month. Insurance adds another $180. Maintenance averages around $900 annually after the warranty expires. Registration, tires, and unexpected repairs average another $700 to $1,200 per year over the ownership period. Depreciation quietly removes roughly 15% to 20% of the vehicle's value during the first year alone. Nobody feels depreciation, but the math certainly does. Year one arrives. Daniel's investment account grows from $40,000 to approximately $47,700 after market growth and contributions. Ryan's account reaches roughly $61,200. That's already a difference of more than $13,000. Neither one notices. Daniel is proud of his new vehicle. Ryan feels slightly behind because social media keeps reminding him what everyone else appears to own. On day one, Daniel looked richer. On day one, Ryan looked boring. The investments don't care how impressive either one looked. By year 3, Daniel has received several raises. His salary is now around $98,000. His investment balance has grown to roughly $66,000. Ryan earns the same salary because they started in identical jobs, but his investment account has climbed to approximately $112,000. Here's where something interesting happens. Ryan's investments earn almost $8,000 during that year alone. Daniel's investments generate roughly $4,700. Neither amount changes their life, yet, because investment income behaves differently from salary. Salary starts over every January. Investments don't. Every dollar they earned last year begins working again this year. That's compounding, not magic, just repetition. Daniel celebrates another promotion. His monthly spending quietly rises by about $450. Streaming subscriptions, weekend trips, dining out, small upgrades. Nothing individually looks expensive. Together, they consume nearly every raise. Ryan also enjoys life. He upgrades his apartment. He travels. But every salary increase automatically sends another percentage into investments before he can spend it. Automation removes emotion. Emotion usually loses. Now let's reach year 5. Daniel's salary is approximately $104,000. Ryan earns exactly the same. Daniel's portfolio sits near $89,000. Ryan's reaches approximately $170,000. On paper, Ryan earned nearly $12,500 from investments that year. Sounds incredible. Until you remember taxes. If investments sit inside tax-advantaged retirement accounts, current taxes may be deferred. If they're in taxable brokerage accounts, dividends and realized capital gains can create annual tax obligations depending on income and holding periods. Taxes matter. Account location matters. Ignoring both produces fantasy math. Even after accounting for taxes, Ryan's investments generated more additional wealth than Daniel's annual raises created. Daniel doesn't notice because raises arrive as paychecks. Investment gains arrive quietly inside an account most people rarely open. This is where psychology begins beating arithmetic. People celebrate salaries. Very few celebrate compound returns, but the balance keeps growing anyway. Then something unexpected happens. The market falls. A sharp correction pushes portfolios down by 18%. Daniel panics. He stops contributing for 6 months because watching his account decline feels unbearable. Ryan keeps investing exactly as before. Same monthly amount, same schedule, no attempt to predict the bottom. Daniel thinks he's protecting himself. Ryan thinks he's buying future returns at lower prices. Neither knows who's right in the moment. A year later, markets recover. Ryan owns more shares because he kept buying while prices were lower. Daniel owns fewer because he paused. That single emotional decision quietly creates another several $1,000s of difference. Not because Ryan was smarter, because his system kept working when his emotions wanted to stop. By year 7, the portfolios no longer feel comparable. Daniel approaches roughly $118,000. Ryan crosses approximately $245,000. Now something remarkable starts happening. Ryan's annual investment gains during a strong market year can exceed $18,000. That's still nowhere near his salary. But look carefully. Those gains required no overtime. No performance review, no promotion, no interview. His money is beginning to produce employees of its own. Daniel still believes the next promotion will change everything. Ryan is beginning to suspect that the portfolio is becoming a second paycheck. And this is exactly where most people misunderstand the journey. They imagine there's a single magical number where everything suddenly changes. There isn't. Instead, there are dozens of quiet milestones that almost nobody notices until they look backward. First, your investments cover your monthly grocery bill. Then, your annual vacation. Then, your housing costs for several months. Eventually, they begin producing more in a year than your annual retirement contributions. Each milestone feels small while it's happening. Together, they completely rewrite your financial future. As year 10 approaches, the distance between Daniel and Ryan is no longer measured by who earns the higher salary. It's beginning to be measured by something far more important: how much work their money is doing while they sleep. As year 10 arrives, Daniel's salary has grown to approximately $121,000. Ryan earns almost exactly the same. If you looked only at their paychecks, you'd assume they're living nearly identical financial lives. But the balance sheets tell a completely different story. Daniel's investment portfolio has grown to roughly $165,000. Ryan's portfolio has climbed to approximately $390,000. Now watch what happens. During a year when the market returns 8%, Daniel's investments generate about $13,000 before taxes and fees. Ryan's investments generate roughly $31,000. On paper, that's impressive. Sounds life-changing. Until you subtract everything else. Inflation averages around 2% to 3% over long periods. Investment management fees, even a seemingly harmless 1% advisor fee, can quietly consume tens of thousands of dollars over decades. Taxes on dividends and realized capital gains may reduce taxable account returns. Those aren't reasons to avoid investing. They're reminders that the headline return is never the whole story. Even after accounting for those frictions, Ryan's investments are now producing roughly 1/4 of his annual salary. Nobody announces that milestone. There isn't a certificate, no promotion, no congratulatory email. The only evidence is a number quietly getting larger while most people are busy chasing the next paycheck. Fast forward to year 15. Daniel has continued investing enough to stay responsible. His portfolio reaches approximately $275,000. Ryan's disciplined contributions, combined with compounding, push his portfolio to roughly $730,000. Now the annual math starts looking completely different. An 8% year on Daniel's account produces around $22,000. Ryan's account produces nearly $58,000. Think about that for a second. Ryan isn't working harder than Daniel. He's not working more hours. His investments are, every year the portfolio earns money, the following year's starting balance becomes even larger. That's the engine almost everyone underestimates. People think wealth comes from earning more. Real wealth comes from owning assets that never ask for a vacation. Then we reach year 20. Daniel is 50 years old. Ryan is 50 years old. Daniel's salary has grown to approximately $148,000. Ryan earns essentially the same. Daniel's investment portfolio sits around $460,000. Ryan's portfolio has crossed approximately $1.3 million. Now the moment we've been building toward finally arrives. An 8% return on $1.3 million equals roughly $104,000 before taxes. That's still below Ryan's salary, but remember, not every dollar needs to come from appreciation alone. Broad stock market portfolios also distribute dividends, and Ryan has continued increasing his contributions every year instead of allowing lifestyle inflation to consume every raise. 2 years later, after additional contributions and normal market growth, his portfolio reaches roughly $1.55 million. An 8% year now produces approximately $124,000. For the first time, his investments earn more than his annual salary, not because he found a secret stock, not because he timed the market, not because he predicted recessions, because he repeated a simple process for more than 2 decades. That's the moment most people imagine feels dramatic. It usually doesn't. Ryan still wakes up and goes to work. He still drinks coffee. He still attends meetings. The only difference is that work has become a choice instead of a necessity. Daniel isn't broke. Far from it. A portfolio approaching $500,000 is a tremendous accomplishment, but his investments still produce roughly $37,000 during a strong market year. Helpful? Absolutely. Enough to replace his paycheck? Not even close. Here's what almost nobody talks about. Everyone loves bragging about portfolio size. I've got $1 million portfolio. That sounds impressive. But portfolio size isn't the number that changes your life. Cash flow is. Let's peel back the layers. First comes taxes. $1 million portfolio inside a traditional retirement account isn't the same as $1 million in cash. Withdrawals may be taxed as ordinary income depending on the account type and current tax law. Second comes investment fees. A 1% annual advisory fee on a $1 million portfolio equals roughly $10,000 every year. Every single year. Third comes inflation. If inflation averages 3%, your investments must first overcome that hurdle before your purchasing power actually increases. Fourth comes sequence of returns risk. Retiring immediately before a severe market downturn can permanently reduce how long a portfolio lasts, even if long-term average returns remain unchanged. Fifth comes behavior. Study after study has shown that many investors underperform the funds they own simply because they buy after markets rise and sell after markets fall. Behavior creates costs no statement ever itemizes. If I only showed you the downsides of increasing your investments, I'd be doing exactly what every extreme financial influencer does. There are genuine disadvantages. Your money becomes less liquid if it's tied up in retirement accounts with age restrictions. Stock markets can decline 30%, 40%, or even more during major bear markets. Watching six figures disappear temporarily requires emotional discipline most people don't realize they lack until it actually happens. And unlike real estate purchased with leverage, and mon nasan kay sempin rioint, stock portfolios generally don't allow you to control large assets with relatively small down payments. There are also situations where Daniel's path can outperform. If someone uses leverage wisely to purchase a cash-flowing rental property in a market with strong rent-to-price ratios, disciplined real estate investing may create higher long-term returns. If your employer offers an unusually generous pension, maximizing taxable investments may not always be the highest priority. If you own a successful business capable of earning 20% to 30% returns on reinvested capital, investing additional money back into that business may outperform buying index funds. Context matters. The numbers matter, not internet slogans. One practical strategy can dramatically improve your odds. Step 1. Automate every investment immediately after payday, so the decision happens before spending begins. Step 2. Whenever you receive a raise, increase your investment rate before upgrading your lifestyle. Even one additional percentage point each year compounds into hundreds of thousands of dollars over multiple decades. Step 3. Review your investment costs annually. Lower expense ratios and lower advisory fees leave more of your returns working for you. According to long-term historical data published by financial market research and broad market index providers, equities have historically outperformed cash over multi-decade periods, although past performance never guarantees future results. The IRS also continues to provide annual contribution limits for tax-advantaged retirement accounts, allowing investors to shelter more of their long-term growth within those limits. Now let's return to Daniel and Ryan. They both walked away believing they were making the smart decision. Daniel believed enjoying every raise was the reward for working hard. Ryan believed saving aggressively was the entire answer. Neither actually ran the complete numbers because the real lesson isn't that spending is bad. And it isn't that investing solves everything. The real trap is making financial decisions based on hype, headlines, or someone else's opinion, instead of calculating what those decisions actually cost or earn over 20 or 30 years. The moment your investments earn more than your salary isn't a finish line. It's evidence that time has finally joined your team. And once time starts working for you instead of against you, every future financial decision becomes easier. If you're wondering what happens when someone combines disciplined investing with cash flowing real estate, with cash, business ownership, or other productive assets, that's a completely different conversation. So here's the question: did you include everything? Because the answer that includes everything is the only answer that matters. If this video helped you see something you didn't know was there, subscribe to Wealth Blueprint and hit the notification bell. We break down the hidden math behind the financial decisions you face every day.